This is not my typical kind of an episode. I actually had the 34th episode of my drug name pronunciation series scheduled for today, but instead, I am remembering the life of my friend, Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast, where we talk about pharmacy topics and careers so you feel connected to the profession of pharmacy and inspired to contribute to it. I'm your host, Kim Newlove, and this is episode 283. Today, we're going to be talking about Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon. I hope that her career inspires you to contribute to the profession of pharmacy too. Asha was a pharmacist, an entrepreneur, a wife, a mother, a colleague, a friend, and so much more. She passed away unexpectedly on June 7th, 2024. Her birthday would have been Monday, June 23rd. Her 46th birthday. We're the same exact age. She was like not even a month older than me. As I published this on Friday, June 21st, her birthday would have been like a few days from now, just 2 days from now. Happy heavenly birthday, my friend. Podcast episodes mark the passing of time for me. For example, if you're familiar with the show, I publish a seasonal update every summer, fall, winter, and spring. So just last month in May, I published my spring update. In that episode, I talked about my trip to Europe. We had a blast. When I want to hear about that trip 2 years from now, when the details get kind of fuzzy in my head, I can always go back and listen to that episode 279, and hear about my trip. Podcast episodes are amazing like that. So today's episode is something that I want to listen to every June 7th. That is the day that Asha passed away. I want to remember my friend, and I will set a reminder in my calendar for every June 7th. So I listen to this episode 283. Asha was special to me. She was special to a lot of people, judging by all the social media posts that I've seen. It is wonderful to hear about how Asha impacted the lives of not just pharmacists, but other people too, professors and family members. Asha, she was special. And she wanted to have a positive impact on the profession of pharmacy and her family. And she totally had a positive impact on the profession and her family. Mission accomplished, my friend. To Asha's family who might be listening to this, her parents, her husband, her kids, I want to say thank you for sharing Asha with the world, with my world. My life is better for having known her. She was a colleague and a friend. I loved her, and I will miss her. I'm trying to hold back the tears. This is a rough episode for me. I'm usually a very upbeat person. So let's keep moving. This episode has 3 parts. In part 1, I will read Asha's obituary from the website link that was provided on Asha's Facebook profile. In part 2 of this episode, I will talk about the 3 episodes of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, this podcast that Asha appeared on. And in part 3, I'll share 8 of my fondest memories of Asha. That will truly be the best part. You will hear the smile in my voice during that part. But first, let's start with the toughest part of this episode, Asha's obituary. Obituary for Asha Pai Bohannon. Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon, PharmD, CDCES, CPT, a beloved mother, wife, daughter, sister, and aunt, passed away suddenly from a heart attack at her home in Raleigh, North Carolina on Friday, June 7th, 2024. She was 45 years old. Asha was the cherished spouse of Eric Bohannon and a devoted mother to their 2 children, Naveen, 13, and Shailene, 10, Bohannon. Her vivacious and outgoing personality made her a beacon of light, positively impacting all who knew her. Born with an innate passion for helping others, Asha earned her Doctor of Pharmacy degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Her personal experiences with family members affected by diabetes fueled her commitment to specialize in diabetes care. Asha became a certified diabetes care and education specialist, CDCES, and a certified personal trainer, CPT, and held additional certifications in medication therapy management, MTM, and immunization. Known for her captivating sense of humor, she uplifted those around her with kindness and positivity. Her legacy of love, laughter, and holistic healing will continue to inspire thousands fortunate enough to be touched by her presence. In addition to her husband and children, Asha is survived by Karnir S. Pai, her father, Kesturi S. Pai, her mother, Nesha Pai, her sister, Neil Pai, her brother, nephews Rupin, Mylan, and Rohan, numerous friends, colleagues, and patients who admired her tireless dedication to improving lives through compassionate care. Asha's life will be celebrated in a private family service. Instead of flowers, the family asks that donations be made to the American Diabetes Association, ADA, in her honor, ensuring that her mission to provide holistic healthcare continues to thrive. Asha's mission for making trial and error a thing of the past began in retail pharmacy, where she soon recognized the need for a more holistic approach to healthcare. She founded the Pi Wellness Group, where she implemented her unique 7 Steps to Harmony process, focused on a holistic care model that managed illness with the fewest medications possible. Asha always talked about harmony in life, not balance. She believed that harmony in the mind, body, and spirit was an integral part of living a healthy and happy life. Asha's work extended beyond patient care. Together with her husband Eric, she launched programs like Impact Pharmacist and the Center of Excellence programs, providing foundational business knowledge for other pharmacists wishing to launch their wellness practices. Her efforts assisted numerous pharmacists in avoiding burnout and finding fulfillment in their careers, thereby increasing the influence of pharmacists in the industry. An accomplished author, Asha penned To Medicate or Not, That Is the Question, and Impact Pharmacist, Start Your Own Wellness Practice and Leave Your Retail Pharmacy Job Behind. These works reflect her dedication to patient advocacy and her ambition to revolutionize the healthcare system by empowering patients and practitioners. Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon will always be remembered and cherished by those who loved her and those whose lives she impacted. That concludes Asha's obituary. I gotta say, whoever wrote that did a fantastic job, and the fact that the word impact was in there more than once was so on brand for her. I know this is not a branding exercise to have an obituary, and it is very weird for me to read my friend's obituary on my podcast, but whoever wrote that really embraced who Asha was and put it out there for the world to see. Thank you. I thought I would be in tears by now, but I am just so proud of the woman that my friend was. So I gotta say, I'm ready to keep going. Let's do part 2. In part 2, I'll talk about the 3 episodes of the Pharmacist Voice podcast that Asha was on. I remember these fondly, and I listened to all 3 this week. The first one was episode 9, the second one was episode 77, and the last one, the third one, was episode 169. Let's talk about them one at a time. The first one that Asha was on was episode 9. Single digits here. Asha was a really willing guest, okay? This brand new podcast, and she offered to be on it. I loved her for that. The name of the episode was Interview with Dr. Asha Bohannon, Pharmacist Entrepreneur, and that was published on March 13th of 2020. That literally came out the day that the world stopped due to the pandemic. Now, this was really one of my first episodes, and you can hear that it sounds like one of my first episodes. My engineering skills were not then what they are now. But I really liked hearing myself tell the story of how Asha and I met. It's in the first 5 minutes of that episode. I feel like I've my voice has changed since I published that episode too. It was really cool to not only hear the story, but hear what I sounded like 4 years ago, 4+ years ago. The story of how Asha and I met is one of my favorite memories of Asha. We'll be getting to that in part 3 in just a couple minutes. That was one of my favorite parts of that episode. And then I also loved that around the 45-minute mark, we talked about being friends for life. That's a fond memory. The second episode was episode 77. That one was titled Interview with Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon, pharmacist, entrepreneur, author, and business coach. That was published on January 1st of 2021. That was my New Year's Day episode that year, it looks like. Asha talked about her first book. She was so proud of it, and the business coaching that she and Eric started after they attended the second annual Metapreneurs Summit together. Eric is not a pharmacist, but he came to Metapreneurs, and it was really cool to watch them together and see how excited they were about helping other pharmacists. Even then, that's where they got the idea to help other pharmacists start businesses. See, Eric, if you're listening to this, you're in some of my fond memories too. Episode 169 was the Back to School series with Asha Bohannon, PharmD. That was the title, Back to School series with Asha Bohannon, PharmD. In that episode, Asha talked about her 2 online courses. They were Impact Pharmacist and PGX Ally. The PGX Ally course ended shortly after that episode was published, but the Impact Pharmacist course remained. She helped a lot of people with that course. She and Eric helped a lot of pharmacists with that course. All right, that's the end of my list of episodes of the Pharmacist Voice podcast that Asha was on. I so encourage you to listen to those, especially if you've never listened to them. Even though Asha has passed, her words, her inspiration, the impact that she wanted to make can still affect you. So I encourage you to check out episodes 9, 77, and 169 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. All 3 links are in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. Next up is the third and final part of this episode. I will share some of my fondest memories of Asha. There are 8 on the list. Number 1, I love how we met. We went to Metapreneurs having not known each other at all. We did not know each other. And I strolled in after driving like 11 hours from Ohio to North Carolina by myself. I was starving. I threw my stuff in my hotel room and I walked up to the bar. I maybe shook a few hands and said hello on the way. And I said, "Bartender, I need a menu." And I got something to eat and drink. My Cobb salad comes to me, and this woman sits next to me. It's Asha. And she says, "Hey, that looks good. What you got there?" And if you know Asha, that is so something she would say. Super friendly. "I don't know you, but I'm going to start talking to you." And she goes ahead and gets a Cobb salad. So we're at the bar at Metapreneurs, barely talking to anybody. We got our heads over our plates. We're chowing down at the bar and bonding. That is where our friendship started. I don't know if I told this story now as well as I did in episode 9, but that's basically the story. We bonded over Cobb salads at the bar at the first ever Metapreneurs with our backs to like everybody because we were so hungry. It had been a long day for me, and I'm sure for her as well. So we met at the first ever Metapreneurs Summit, which was in Asheville, North Carolina in April of 2018. And so many things happened. We hung out around each other all weekend, and we felt like we joined the same tribe. We joined the same tribe at that first Metapreneurs Summit. And we actually jokingly called our group of 6 people our Metapreneur Posse. We even had a Facebook group with 6 members in it at one point. It was fun. So number 1 is how we met. That is one of my fondest memories of Asha. Now on to number 2. A lot of my memories with Asha are connected to Metapreneurs. So here's another one. We used to wake up at 5 a.m. on the Saturday of the Metapreneurs Weekend in Cincinnati and Kansas City, Missouri. And we would just walk and talk. And we had some meaningful conversations at 5 a.m. That is one of my fondest memories of Asha. Friends show up for each other, and we showed up for each other at 5 a.m. Number 3 on my list is keeping in touch. One of my fondest memories of Asha is getting that first holiday letter. We would text each other and call each other from time to time, but getting a holiday card with, a picture of her family, her husband, and the kids, I felt like I was in the inner circle. I felt like we were connected more authentically because I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily send self-addressed, stamped letters to people that I don't know. That was really personal. So keeping in touch, keeping in touch was one of my fondest memories of Asha. We would text each other sometimes on our birthdays, and I really enjoyed the Bitmoji texts that we used to send one another. I don't know about you, but I love Bitmojis. I speak Bitmoji. Number 4, Asha was one of my first ever guests on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. We already talked about which episodes she was on, but one of my fondest memories was that I didn't know what I was doing at first, and Asha just went with it. I really appreciated that. It was really super early in my podcasting career. I started the podcast in December 2019. She was on the podcast March 2020. Super early. I did not know how to do my research or write my questions, so I ended up getting a list of powerful interview questions from a famous podcaster named Eric K. Johnson. It was a great list of questions, but you can tell I asked these great questions because I was going from this guy's list. Since then, on the other 2 times that she was on the podcast, I knew how to ask good questions, and she was awesome right from the start. Every single episode she was in, she brought value to my audience, and I appreciated that. That is a fond memory. I would have had Asha back a 4th time later this year to talk about her YouTube podcast as part of the Pharmacist Podcasters series on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. But she passed away, and that won't be happening. But she certainly would have been a great guest. Fond memory number 5. Asha's second book, which she co-authored with her husband Eric, was my first audiobook project on Amazon.com. That was a huge accomplishment to get that first audiobook narrated, and I was very proud that Asha and Eric chose me to narrate Impact Pharmacist. I'll put a link to that book in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click on the podcast tab and then find episode 283. Fond memory, narrating an audiobook for a friend. Number 6, one of my fondest memories of Asha was working with her to create a webinar for her Impact Pharmacist students about podcasting. I delivered that webinar in February of 2024. I recorded my side of the webinar on my recording software, same thing that I'm using here today. I transcribed that recording, and then I developed the text from the recording into my first ebook. My first ebook comes out this summer. It is titled Pharmacist Podcaster, and it's about planning a podcast. Fond memory number 7 is about my LinkedIn profile. Asha wrote me a recommendation for my LinkedIn profile. I was not expecting it. It just showed up one day. It was a surprise, and that's what made it special. It was well written. It was unexpected. It came from the heart. And if you want to read it, it's on my LinkedIn profile still today. The 8th and final fond memory that I want to share about Asha with you is from Metapreneurs 2023. As I record this in June of 2024, of course, this was last year. We were in a session. We were seated, and the instructions from the leader were to form an accountability group. Shout out to the other members of the accountability group: Andrea Leschak, Janan Sarwer, Holly Nunn, Renarda Jones, and Wendy Jones. Heather Lyons was also there, but I don't remember her attending the meetings that followed the Metapreneurs. So sorry, Heather, I didn't mention you there. Anyways, those ladies, including Asha and I, got together probably a handful of times after the Metapreneurs event. It was, of course, on Zoom because we all live in different areas of the country. And we talked about what we were working on. We were holding each other accountable and we were sharing input and resources. That is a fond memory. We were literally working together. We formed that group at Metapreneurs in 2023, and like I said, I just have fond memories of being part of a working group with Asha. When Asha passed on, it was Andrea really that reached out and let me know what was going on. So thank you, Andrea, and I really enjoyed our time together. That was a great group. Fond memory number 8. All right, over the last 6 years, I really enjoyed being Asha's friend and just part of her life in general. I am truly sorry to hear that she passed. My sympathy goes out to her family, especially her parents, her siblings, her husband, and, oh, God bless them, the 2 little boys. Rest in peace, my friend Asha. Rest in peace. I think this is a good place to wrap this episode up. I plan to listen to this episode every June 7th to remember Asha. June 7th was the day that she died, and I invite you to mark your calendar so that you can do the same as well. As long as somebody speaks your name, you're never truly forgotten. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacist Voice Podcast, episode 283. I hope you feel inspired by Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon's career so that you can make an impact on the profession of pharmacy too. The show notes for this episode are on thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click on the podcast tab and then search for episode 283. In the show notes today, you will find links to Asha's obituary, the 3 podcast episodes that I mentioned, her books, her social media channels, and more. If you know someone who would like to hear about Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon, please share this episode with them. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks for listening today. I'll talk to you next Friday.